I would recommend the 5-step framework. The 5-step framework starts with identifying all sources of uncertainty, then moving on to anticipating scenarios, then creating broad strategies. So you have a different paths where things can move about, and create broad strategies. Then put a lot of emphasis and focus on the high probability scenarios where most likely to happen, and then also come up with contingency plans or hedging, what I call hedge for these high impact but low probability scenarios. The impact could be positive or negative, but typically it's very critical to come up with some contingency plans for to minimize the downside uncertainty. The problem with most companies today is that strategic planning or business strategy formulation itself is an activity that is not entirely done totally correctly in many companies, but even if it is done, they do not have space for planning for uncertainty. So to transition from the current business strategy formulation or strategic planning, where companies are typically formulating basically plans for the next 1 year or 2 years, they have to go beyond that. They have to look at take that existing 1-year plan, the next year plan, plus move a little bit farther in the horizon and use this framework to identify all possible scenarios. That will require a lot more effort. So take the existing ones and then expand it a little bit. But also take in mind a lot of different fresh thinkers in the company. Now, it shouldn't be entrusted with one individual, but there should be a combination of a lot of cross-disciplinary executives involved in this. There is a lot of uncertainty in 4 dimensions: political, economic, social, and technological mainly. Political, the general elections are around the corner. People are not clear about which party is going to come to power, what policies are going to be changed, what policies will be retained. In the economic, people are worried about the economic rate of growth. It has become slower now. 5% is something everybody's willing to settle for. A few years ago, India was shooting for 7-8%. And the inflation issue is still at large. It's not clear whether that is, the exchange rate has just barely stabilized. So the economic uncertainty at the macro level is very high, and the micro level is also very high because industries themselves are not clear how economics of each industries are going to evolve. So there is an economic uncertainty. There is a social uncertainty because we know that demographically India has got the 50% of the population is under 25, 70% under 35. So they are gradually evolving in their preferences and their aspirations. There is also the role of women in the society, which is unfortunately lagging behind, and it needs to be uplifted in a lot of areas, starting from security, safety, equal opportunities, education, literacy. There are so many things that uncertainties still exist there. And then technological uncertainty is a big uncertainty everywhere in the world, including India. In India particularly, it has a lot of significance because the population being very young, they're very agile in terms of adoption of technology, broadband, mobile media adoptions. There's uncertainty. How fast are they going to evolve? For example, you have the mobile penetration rate, which is maybe 5%, fixed or wireless, whichever way we want to look at it. These devices are going to be increasingly fundamental to this population. So how does that technological evolution take place? And the fixed internet, also broadband penetration, very low in India, although it has to evolve very quickly. So that uncertainty, these are all combined together. These will create a significant set of overall uncertainties, and that's what companies have to start putting them on the paper and start creating some plans around it, even if they're not completely sure about the probability of these occurrences, but at least they should start listing these scenarios, combinations, and then starting to put some plans around it. Typically, sectors where the pace of change, not just technology change, pace of general change, maybe change in customer taste, change in environmental infrastructures happen very fast. Those are the industries where you have to worry the most. So obviously companies in the tech space will have to worry about, because technology is changing very fast and they have to know, and we know so many examples in the tech space. Companies that used to be winners 10 years ago are no longer in the horizon. Nokia is a great case, BlackBerry is a great case, Kodak is another case. So technology is a space where people have to watch out, but I wouldn't say no sector is immune from uncertainty issues. Every sector has, it's just the rate of pace that you have to worry about. But also some of the sectors that may be slow to change, they may also be increasingly slow to also put plans in place. Right? Even if changes happen slowly, but if you start putting a uncertainty plan in place, it'll take long to execute. So it works both ways. Like oil and gas, for example, a slower industry, but it takes more time for you to make some big changes in that industry. Companies should first create a culture, the culture of developing strategy under uncertainty. So that starts from the bottom to the top. So they have to identify talent which are willing to think outside, willing to take risks. To be able to manage uncertainty, you have to be able to take risks, you have to be able to fail, and the culture has to allow it. So most of the leadership is created in this culture, and the people who have done well in this culture will evolve to the top. And so leaders have to be created within the culture, and they have to be trained too, because this is an area where companies do not have adequate expertise. They'll have to actually send people for higher education, to continuing education, to master these skills, and then they have to give them opportunities for them to do this. And then succession planning at the end is very, very critical. So the leaders have to hand over to the next leaders and so on. Most of the times when we see uncertainties transcend generations. So a leader today should be able to anticipate what the next generation is going to have. And the next generation leader, it has to pick. And the boards also have to be very, very, the governance has to be good, because the boards have a lot of say in how these leaders are picked and how these leaders are retained. So I think there's a combination of a lot of things that it needs to happen, starting from culture all the way to leadership succession.